Welcome back to the Explainer, everyone. Today, we're jumping into a super practical resource from the Foundry by Forge College. Our goal? It's simple, but absolutely crucial. We're finally moving away from the high-level theory of Paymaster funding models and getting straight into actual, runnable Solidity code. Let's get our hands dirty, shall we? Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our safe, step-by-step recipe for today, so nobody feels overwhelmed. We'll start with concept to code, meet your minimal Paymaster, fire up the lab, run the simulation, and finish off with the golden rules. Section 1, concept to code. It's time to take all that funding model theory we've been talking about and actually build the contract side logic. So when we're building this out, we need to think of a paymaster in a very specific kind of dual role way. It's basically the bouncer and the bookkeeper of Web3 transactions. Think about it. The bouncer stands right at the door checking your ID to see if you're even eligible to enter the club. Meanwhile, the bookkeeper is sitting back in the office, meticulously writing down the gas tab to make sure the network actually gets paid for the computation. And what exactly is that tab we're talking about? Well, in Web3 jargon, it's called a user operation. Conceptually, it's literally just a bar tab. When a user executes an action, they hand this tab over to the bartender, which, in our case, is the bundler, who then slides it over to our paymaster to see, hey, is the house going to cover this bill? Section 2. Meet your minimal paymaster. Let's look at the core ingredient of our local, simplified experiment. And just a quick warning, definitely do not deploy this bare-bones logic to mainnet. And this brilliantly illustrates how our contract fundamentally wears those two hats we just talked about. On one side, we've got the decision engine. That's the policy and eligibility stuff, our bouncer checking the strict rules. On the flip side, we have the accounting agent, handling the bookkeeping and emitting those final events for the blockchain to permanently record. Keeping these two completely distinct makes designing the whole thing so much easier. To do both of those jobs, the folks at Forge College outline one single, absolutely crucial public function: evaluate sponsorship. It takes in three key things: the requester's address, the target address they are trying to interact with, and max gas, the maximum gas they're allowed to use. After running through all its internal math and logic checks, this function just hands back a simple true or false. Inside that function, our bouncer is really just asking two simple questions. Are you on the whitelist? And do we have enough funds for you? Specifically, it calculates the estimated cost by multiplying that max gas parameter by the current network gas price. If that estimated cost is totally covered by a pre-funded internal balance in the contract, and if your target address is on the allowed list, boom, you pass the test. Section 3, firing up the lab. Let's set up our local testing environment, where if our code breaks, hey, we only lose time, not actual ETH. Getting started is an easy 4-step process. First, you initialize Hardhat. Second, you compile the contract just to make sure there aren't any weird syntax errors. Third, you start up a local node. And fourth, you deploy safely. In all the hands-on courses at Forge College, we always emphasize doing this local testing first. It really builds your confidence before you ever touch a live network. Now, when you execute step 3 and spin up that local node, you're going to see this magic number pop up in your terminal, 127.0.0.1:8545. That is your local JSON RPC endpoint. It instantly generates a set of deterministic, totally fake accounts loaded with test ETH. It's a completely safe, isolated playground where you can run your experiments over and over again. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is, sure, our bouncer is at the door, but how do we know they are actually checking IDs? Just deploying the contract is only half the battle, right? Just because it's sitting there on our local blockchain doesn't mean it actually works. We have to interact with it to prove our logic holds up under pressure. Section 4, running the simulation. Let's fire up interaction.js, our node script that sends a mock payload directly to the paymaster. So when we run that script and send our fake bar tab to the paymaster, we aren't just looking for some unhelpful success message. No way. We have a strict output checklist. First, we want to see the transaction's actual gas used. Second, the specific event details logged right to the console. Third, we need to know if it was accepted. Did it return true or false? And finally, the reason string. That string tells us exactly why our contract made the decision it did. The logic here is actually pretty elegant. We calculate the estimated cost by multiplying max gas by the transaction gas price. Depending on what we feed the simulation, it goes down one of two paths. If the funds cover the cost and the target is totally valid, it emits a sponsorship decision event of true.
But if there are insufficient funds or a bad target, it guarantees a rejection event of false. It's an incredibly deterministic and predictable system. But wait, here is a critical nuance that constantly catches people off guard. When you inspect the transaction receipt in your terminal, the gas used value is non-zero, even if the sponsorship was flat out denied. Why? Because the very act of evaluating those rules, checking the whitelist, doing the math, inherently consumes gas on the EVM. Section 5. The Golden Rules. Let's wrap up this lab experiment and pull out the core principles that will guide us when designing much more complex contracts later. So the crucial point is this: separate eligibility checks from accounting emissions. When you're architecting these systems, your wild, dynamic policy rules, all the logic of who gets sponsored and when, must never, ever leak into your basic accounting primitives. Let the bouncer and the bookkeeper do their jobs independently within the code. To sum it all up, here are your 3 golden rules. 1. Separate eligibility from accounting. 2. Preserve on-chain observability with clear, detailed events. Always include text reasons and gas estimates so everyone can see exactly what went down. And 3. Keep your funding models explicit and deterministic. When you follow these rules, off-chain bundlers and monitoring systems can consistently trust and verify your Paymaster's decisions. Okay, so our minimal Paymaster works brilliantly in our isolated local lab. The bouncer and the bookkeeper are working perfectly together, and we've successfully laid the groundwork. But here's the real question. What happens when 1,000 users show up at the exact same time? A simple whitelist isn't going to save our funds from draining in minutes. How do we start designing richer policies like dynamic rate limiting and daily caps? That's exactly what we need to figure out next. Keep building and definitely head over to forge.college to dive deeper into this subject and grab some more amazing Web3 resources. Think about how your contract is going to handle that intense network pressure, and I'll catch you next time.